Hey guys, it's Andrew Murray here, and Marie and I just did a killer webinar. On this webinar, which we're able to record it, so you're gonna be able to watch it right now. You're gonna learn what Bruce Lee is gonna teach you about business that you absolutely need to know. How he dominated and what he did, and how that directly applies to you. I'm also gonna share with you how we made $1 million in hockey. And if that's not enough, I'm gonna give you the secret to success. And this is a simple test that you can do, and in 5 minutes or less, you know exactly why you're having success, and if you're not, what you need to do to change and start having that success. So I want you to watch this entire video, take notes. It's pretty awesome. There's even a little bit of singing that I do in the middle of it, so stay tuned for that and enjoy the webinar.
Let's get this started. Welcome to this webinar. And Marie and I are going to be explaining about success. So first off, Marie, welcome to the webinar.
Thank you. And everyone, welcome to this webinar. You've taken a Sunday afternoon to come here, and we are just so excited to be able to give this information to you. So throughout this webinar, we're going to start here. We're going to ask for some participation. So I was going to ask, first of all, can everybody hear us? Let me know if you can hear us. I just want to make sure that everybody can hear us. And then we're going to get started here.
Okay.
Yes, perfect. Okay, great. So,
all right.
Yeah, like I said, we're so excited to be able to deliver this information to you because literally this information changed our lives. And each and every single time, wow, we've got ringing phones here. So each and every single time we actually revisit it, it takes our lives and what we want to do to the next level. So really what I want you to do is I want you to go ahead, grab a piece of paper, grab a pen, because you really do want to take notes. And the other thing is that I want you to come here with a really open mind and be willing to really look at yourself, what you're doing in your business. Now, I know that a lot of you are already in a business, and that's perfect because this will apply to anybody in any business. And so basically what we're going to do here is we're going to be taking a holistic approach to what we do. And so you'll see why in just a few minutes why what we're about to cover here is really very critical.
And this could probably be the most important thing that you've ever seen, because when you're able to understand this principle and how to use it, you're going to start seeing success in a lot of areas of your life. And you'll know why, if you're not having the success, exactly why that is and what you need to do to make that change. And knowing that is really powerful because it's really all about getting to your goals. So,
Exactly.
So basically, yeah.
So, I mean, we have actually not covered this topic in a very long time. Most of the time when people come and they come to our webinars, we always train on how to market. And yet, the topic today has really helped thousands of people just for their own benefit. Whatever it is that you want to do, it's really helped thousands of people. And so if you've worked with me personally, if you've worked with Andrew and I personally, you've probably heard us talk about this a lot already. And if you haven't, again, this is it's such critical information, and we're so excited to be able to give it to you. Now, basically, we are going to start with Bruce Lee.
All right, so here's Bruce Lee.
And Andrew and I, Bruce Lee is very interesting because Andrew and I started studying Bruce Lee and his life actually back, and I would say about 1993, 94. A very good friend of mine, at that time, he was actually a Pan American champion in the martial art of Wing Chun. And so we would actually spend hours together talking about philosophy and preparing the mind. And this is what brings me back to Bruce Lee, who was a master at that. If you got our email, we talk about Bruce Lee and how he crushed his competition in seconds. And what was it about him that he was able to do that? Now,
because Bruce Lee was one of the first people to actually bring, different martial arts together and combine them. So a lot of people were in the martial arts world, knew one discipline and they would, fight against each other, but there wasn't as much, surprise, the element of surprise.
Right, and so like Andrew said, what he was able to do was he pulled together multi-disciplines and he simplified it for really quick, effective results. And at the same time, he also harnessed the power of his mind to effectively do that. So he was really cultivating the right environment.
Now, one of the other points that's really important here is about the simplification. A lot of people, like Leonardo da Vinci, he has a quote, and he says, the greatest, I don't know, but the ideal thing that you want to do is really simplify everything to as much as you can without oversimplifying it. And when you can do that, that's when you start to have incredible, powerful results. So what we're going to be talking about in this webinar is going to allow you to do that. It's going to give you a simple way that you can start getting these results for yourself.
Now, talking about Bruce Lee, right, and his ability to control his emotions, that brings me to how Andrew and I actually got started. So when we got started back in 2001. We actually got started with a very popular and giant MLM company. And really, the reason we were able to accomplish everything that you see here on this screen was because when we first started, a large emphasis was actually put on mental mastery. So basically, we studied everything that we could get our hands on. I remember...
Exhaustively.
Exactly. And I remember with every spare moment that we had, we would get our hands on all of these different things, really try to figure out how the people who were very successful, what were they doing, what kind of, mental philosophy did they have, what were they doing. And so I remember we actually made a pact that we would read between 2 and 4 books each and every single month just to get that information. It was almost like an obsessive thing for us. And, the reason it is because you have to put yourself in the right frame of mind. And the reason you have to do that is because state is everything. And so really, when I look at this and we're able to achieve all of this, top producers in almost every single company we've been in, top enrollers right now in our current company, it really is because of what we're going to go through here today. So honestly, I'm just so excited.
Now also I should say that it started with us just saying, why not us? If these other people can do it, we just wanted to figure out what other people were doing, why they were successful.
Exactly. And so your mind actually sets the stage, right? Your mind sustains you throughout all of your adversity, and it's your mind that will actually allow you to fail. So,
people just don't understand how powerful the mind is, and it's really important to understand this because where you need to go, always comes from the mind. Everything that you're going to do springs from the mind. If you look around you, if you look at the lamps that are by you, if you look at the computer, if you look at the table that you're on, if you look at the art on your walls, if you look at any single thing, someone designed that in their mind first. That's pretty powerful.
Right. And so, again, most of you are already currently in a home business. Many of you could actually be in our home business. But what I want you to do is I really want you to think about why you got involved. What was your why? Because everybody who is here actively building a business, there was a reason why you decided to take that plunge, get involved in your business. And so, it's probably, most likely, for us it was that we wanted to have, for us really it was because we wanted to have generational wealth. We wanted to dictate our own earning potential. We really wanted to have the options to do what we wanted to do with every single day of our life. We wanted to be able to wake up and decide that we were going to do anything we wanted. Those were all driving forces for us. So what was your why? Now the thing is, you probably also really saw an incredible way to create just amazing income. Like I said, dictating your own income. And that people are already making money, making that kind of income because it's true and verifiable, right? So your mind sets the stage. So at this point, all you really want to do is you want to bridge this gap. So like I said, people are literally compressing 40 years into 3 years. But the problem is you may not be there yet. You may be struggling. You may not know why. okay? So like I said, you already know that people are making this income. Like Andrew said, when we were trying to figure things out, we knew that we could do this because other people were already doing it. So what you need to do is you really have to harness, the whole idea of you have to harness like your mental mastery,
You have to learn how to let your mind unlock where you want to go. And that's what we're going to be teaching you how to do in this webinar.
Exactly, bridging the gap from where you are now to where you want to be. So how do you do this? Now, for Andrew and I, what did we learn? So this was really important. I mean, that whole idea of putting 40 years or working, compressing 40 years into 3 years made a lot of sense to us.
Yeah. We should really talk about that for a second because I don't think people really understand it.
Sure.
Here you have, the beginning of the axis and this is the time. Okay. So this is the time. And here's the money that you can make. Now, when you have a job, you start off here and, maybe you get a raise and all that kind of stuff. And maybe you don't actually get a raise because of inflation. And then maybe you lose your job and then you don't make any money. And then you get another one here. But you're always going to be on this income level. That's the thing that a lot of people don't understand. You really need to increase your income level. Now, when you start in something like network marketing, you start off down here. Day one, you don't make any money, unless you actually enroll people. But with the Axis, what you find is that you can go up very quickly, and that's what happens. When you compress 30 years or 40 years into 4 years, okay, you can make the same amount of money in much less time, okay, than this person who works at a job for 40 years, okay. And when you think about that for a minute and you just really understand it, it's really powerful.
Yeah, it's interesting because I actually did the calculation. I actually took the average. The average household, or actually the average household income. And what I did was I took that and I did just simple calculation, basically what you would be making, if you did that each and every single year after 40 years. And then I took the income, like people are always talking about when they come into a business, they hear people, the network marketing industry, they really want to get to a point where they're making, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, $50,000 plus a month. And you know what? That happens. Again, the reason you decided to come into whatever business you're building is because you have seen that. There are people that you work with each and every single day that are creating that type of income. And when we put that against the income that people created for 40 years, each and every single day, day in, day out, 40 years of your life, like from your 20s to your 60s, the income in 5 years that you made in network marketing, if you really decided to commit, 3 to 5 years, it was the exact same income that most people do in 40. And so when we, going back to what we said after we got onto this tangent is, for Andrew and I, it was part of, for us, bridging the gap was to learn to be a seeker, to learn to be persistent, to really learn to harness the power of our own mind. So no matter what kind of adversity we were up against, because you always run into adversity, we were able to get over that and keep on going and keep on moving forward. And as being top producers in companies and working with a lot of people and having trained thousands of people generically, what we find is that people have a very hard time actually being able to take themselves from one place to another. They don't have the mental mastery to be able to keep on going. And so just to talk about what did we learn in, the years that we were being persistent learning. So, what are the things that we learned?
Well, one of probably the most important thing was actually learning how to be persistent, because that's not something that, you're necessarily born with.
Right.
It's something that we had to learn into ourselves. I remember I read a book, The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. And, if anyone's read it, it's a phenomenal book, and it teaches you persistence, and it teaches you by forcing you to take these actions.
Right. I remember actually when we started and Andrew was reading that book, he would be walking up and down our hallway because you had to read it.
Yeah,
right?
like a certain number of times
per day.
Per day. Yeah.
And I would run into him walking up and down our hallway reading a particular chapter, and he did that over and over again. And so, yes, we learned persistence. We really learned to be a seeker, to really look for the information, to be just obsessive about looking for the information that we needed in order to succeed. It was about being and listening to people we already know or we already knew were successful. We learned about influence. We learned about psychology. There were so many different things. And at the same time, we also learned about marketing. Again, we're so known for marketing online. So we learned about the whole sales process, both online and offline. I remember listening to Brian Tracy, who's a great sales trainer. And at the time, it was cassettes we were listening to, and we were sitting in our living room listening to Brian Tracy, just taking notes, trying to figure out what we needed or what we needed to learn in order to succeed.
Yeah, now some people will come into it and they'll understand sales process. You have people that come in that just have a natural ability, but you have to learn this stuff. Either you know it or you need to learn it.
Right. The other part, bridging the gap, we learned HTML, we learned how to build our own sites, we learned branding.
Which is a programming language, HTML.
Exactly. And we don't come from that background. There were just so many things that we were willing to do in order to get ourselves to where we wanted to be.
So we read books and we read courses on all of these different things, on influence, on NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, on psychology, on marketing.
Yeah, we
branding types of marketing, direct response type of marketing. We learned about investing, and we bought huge courses.
Yeah, we bought huge courses. If you're familiar with Robert Allen, we bought a $5,000 course on by Robert Allen. Early on in our career when we
had
actually
$20.
Yeah, we had no money, but we were willing to do that because we were willing to invest in ourselves. Mm-hmm. So that being said, yes, what did we learn? We learned a whole bunch of things, and the reason we were persistent is that we just really believed that no matter what, if we just were out there learning these things, doing what successful people were doing, we would make it work. And we were right. So, going on, mindset is critical. So, like I said, we already had the faith that it would work. And so what is mindset? It's basically a set of beliefs or a way of thinking that determines one's behavior, outlook, and mental attitude. Okay? And so, like I said, I think we were really blessed that way too, because there were two of us, and we knew what we wanted, and sometimes when one person was down, the other person was up, and we could just we fed off each other that way, but at the same time, we always knew what we wanted to do, and we really kept our eye on the prize, and we just kept on going. So we had faith, and your brain, mindset is critical. It's the greatest secret. Your brain can bring about the right energy, the right frequency, and at the end of the day, you're in charge. It's you. You control your own emotions, you control your own actions. Nobody else, you can't control anybody else, but you can control you, and that is where everything starts. If you're building a home business, you have to learn how to control you.
Yeah. And what that means is that, specifically when you have negative thoughts, because you will, learning to let them go. It's a great analogy about the garden. Here's a garden. If you don't clean it out, it's going to go all overgrown with weeds. And that's the perfect analogy, because you need to always be pruning, and getting all that stuff out there.
Right. And so when I said, it starts with you, it's about internal motivation. So let's talk about internal motivation. As an entrepreneur, we get paid based on results. You need to have, And so if you're paid based on results, you need to have that internal motivation to keep going no matter what. And that's where it's a little bit different, because sometimes if you're coming into a home business, you've never been paid on results. You know, you're maybe paid a salary, you show up, you're there. So it doesn't matter how you think or how you feel. As long as you show up, you'll get paid. But the thing is,
and that's the that's the employee mindset. You know, a great book for that helped us really understand this difference was Robert Kiyosaki's Cash Flow Quadrant. And it's really important to understand this, because here's the interesting thing. Employees, when you have that employee mindset, okay, you're actually detached from, you know, what you actually produce, okay, from what you actually create, you know, in your in your job, whatever you're doing. It doesn't really matter if you do a good job or a bad job. It doesn't really matter if you have a good day or a bad day. It doesn't really matter if you have negative thoughts or positive thoughts. And so people learn this. You know, I mean, that's the other thing. You know, people can learn how to have a negative mindset. People can learn how to be an employee, and then there's this huge disconnect between what people are doing and how they're getting paid. Because if you have a bad day and you're paid, you know, let's say at your job you make like, you know, $100 a day or $300 a day or whatever it is, you know, you get paid that whether you have a good day or a bad day. Okay, and that's not how it works in the real world. When you look at businesses and you look at, you know, network marketing, and you look at where you're doing something where you're producing, you're paid to create results, right? And so you always want to form the bias. And if you look at successful people, you know, here's a big clue. Successful people, in terms of being successful financially, you know, they really don't exist here. You know, everyone that's really financially successful has a business, and they're paid based on results. Okay, this is a big concept to understand.
Right. And so, you know, that being said, if you are building your own business, it all, again, we're going back to it all starts with you. You know, if you don't believe in yourself, who else will? So the biggest part of this equation is how you are feeling about things, how you are creating things. And so, you know, it's really interesting, because the first book that Andrew and I, you know, like when I said, when we started back in 2001, there was so much emphasis on personal development and mental mastery. And so one of the first books we were told to pick up was Think and Grow Rich. And you'll see this is a very old copy of Think and Grow Rich, and we picked it up at a used bookstore for $2.95. And this book really changed us. You know, it was the first book that we ever really read on cultivating the right mindset to create the income that we desired. And, you know, the whole idea, I'm coming back to the whole idea of faith. And in this book, they say that faith is really the elixir which gives life, power, and action to the impulse of thought. And so faith is really the starting point of all riches and is the only antidote to failure. Think about that. I'm going to say that again. Faith is the starting point of all riches and the only antidote to failure. So basically what you need to do is you need to really believe in the results before they manifest. I mean, there's no other way. You have to believe that that is coming. And yet most of you, and a lot of the people that we talk to, are always looking for proof. And at the first sign of adversity, you're not sure if this is going to work.
Mm-hmm.
And that is absolutely the wrong way to approach anything. I have a lot of people that say to me, I'm going to try to make this work. And you really have to make a commitment to make it work. You can't just say, try, I'll see how it goes. You know, that already is an invitation, or not even an invitation. That's already setting yourself up to fail. So you have to really believe in the results before they appear. And so
now the other thing about this book is, you know, the main, I guess, mantra that's repeated through it is whatever the mind of man, you know, can conceive, okay, and believe. Okay, spelling problems. So you don't need to be a good speller. It can achieve. Okay, you can achieve. All right, so whatever the mind of man, first it's got to conceive, all right? And then you got to believe, and then you get the results, okay? Now, one of the things about this book, okay, that's interesting is it was actually written, and if you read the introduction, what it says is, it's never quite explicitly explained. It's kind of like danced around so people can kind of uncover it for themselves. But, basically, that's what makes this book fantastic, and everyone should go out and read it. But here it is, everything happens in the mind first. Okay, first it's a conception. Okay, first it's something that you conceive, that you create in the mind. Okay, and then as Marie said, it's about the faith. It's about believing, right? So you need to have those two things in order to have success. And this is an important point to note. You got to believe. First you got to conceive, and then you have to believe. Okay, and that's when things start manifesting. So it's really important to understand this because there is a specific process, and we're going to get to that in a little bit here.
Now, the law of attraction, and just so you know, we are not really talking about the law of attraction today. I mean, we're going to touch on it, but this is not what we're talking about. Back in, I guess it was 2006, The Secret came out. And I remember watching the trailer for it and just being really energized because it is a secret, I think. For a lot of people, they go through their life not really understanding their full power and their full potential.
Right.
And when, Andrew doing that conceive, believe, achieve, I mean, that is a very powerful formula. Again, bringing it back to your own personal business. At some point, like you conceptualize the idea that you could be successful here. But sometimes you drop the ball on actually like the belief, like the faith, the belief, and you never get through that whole formula in order to get your results. And so what The Secret did was really interesting because it brought this idea of being able to, basically The Secret said if you think the things that you think about and feel about, or think and feel, determine or bring about your actions which determine your results, okay? And it was interesting because when we were watching that, it was so strange for us because for years, Andrew and I had already been doing that. Even before we read Think and Grow Rich and everything else, we just really saw that every time that we put our mind to something, it was very powerful. It was almost like it would manifest. And so when we saw the law of attraction, we were like, wow, that's exactly what's happening, right? But then, so we went through the law of attraction, and in The Secret, they taught you that a negative thought carries a lot of power. So we're often the creators of our own misfortune. So if we could change it so that the things that we were thinking about were positive, then we could make the change in our life.
Yeah. Now, if you're interested in the law of attraction, and want to know more about that, we have a site called freelawofattraction.com. Okay, and that goes more into the stuff with The Secret if you want to know how to apply that.
Right. So talking about the law of attraction. So basically, the magnet is you, is what they told you. Think positive, and they spent a lot of time on the thoughts part. What you think about, you bring about. But there really are two things to this, right? So we talked about how your thoughts and feelings equal your actions, which determine your results. So you have to spend time on the action part. And so there were a lot of people who watched The Secret, and then they just thought, okay, I can do a vision board. I can, see it and think about it and think about it and think about it. But then at the end, they would say, well, I'm practicing the law of attraction, but I'm not really getting what I want, right? And so, like I said, their thoughts and feelings equal actions which determine your results, okay? You have to put in the action. But this is where people get tripped up. It's the action part, okay? This is where they get stuck. And so this is really what this call is about. So problems with the action, okay? Here's Bruce Lee again, and he basically says, knowing is not enough, we must apply. Andrew always says, information and knowledge is nothing without action. And willing is not enough. We must do. So yes, you can have the greatest intentions, but again, you must take action. So how do people take action?
Yeah, and you got to have both of these. It's really important that you have, the knowing and the willing. It's like the yin and yang. They work together.
Right. So here's the real secret. Okay, so how do people get the action? Like I said, people get tripped up on the action. They don't know how to bring this about. And this is the real secret. And so, start writing this down, because I promise you, if you are having issues in your business right now, you are going to figure out why. In the next 10 minutes, you're going to figure out exactly why you're having this problem.
Are y'all ready? Are y'all ready? All right, let's get to it.
Okay, the willingness to learn. Okay, every time Andrew and I talk to somebody who's ready to get started, they're very excited. The question really is, for us, our mentor always says, somebody can come into your business, but whether they build or not is a completely different story. So every time we talk to somebody, they say, yes, I'm coming in, I'm ready to sign up. They sign up. But the question is, are you really willing to do whatever it takes to create the income that you desire? So remember, we talked about you really need to know your why. That's very important, okay? But are you willing to do whatever it takes to create your desired outcome? Now, a lot of you will say, yes, absolutely. On a scale from 1 to 10, what are you? People will say, I'm a 10, I'm a 10. I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make this work. So we say, okay, fine. But it's really interesting because
a lot of things get in people's way, like pride, ego. You have to really, really be willing to learn, and a lot of people would rather be right.
Right, exactly. And so here's the thing. Generally people think that they have a high willingness to learn. Like I said, if you ask people, they'll say, definitely, I'm like a 10 out of 10. But the question is, are you being truthful about your willingness to learn and take action? So the only way you can actually really figure out if you're willing to learn, and you're teachable, you're willing to learn, is to really ask yourself this question. What are you willing to give up to make your business work? Now, I think it's awesome that everybody here is on the phone or is at this webinar here on a Sunday afternoon. It is beautiful outside. Here where we are, it's a long weekend. Everybody is outside, and it's probably the same where you are. And it's amazing that you guys are here sitting in front of your computer really trying to take this information in, because I'll tell you, a lot of people wouldn't.
Yeah.
They'd say, well, it's the weekend, I work all week, I have to be with my kids, I want to see my family, just whatever it is, there's something, okay? But you have to, so the question is, okay, what are you willing to give up? Sit there for a second. What is your favorite thing in the entire world? What do you love to do? Do you love to golf? Do you love to watch TV? Do you love to, whatever it is? Do you love playing with your kids? Determine what that is and then decide, are you willing to give that up or dramatically reduce that to see or to get what you want?
Now, the willingness to learn, right now, everyone on the webinar is showing that they're willing to learn. But it's also important to recognize that the willingness to learn, will fluctuate with time. And that's natural. So you can go with that. I mean, Marie and I have had times where we've, just banned, music from our car, because we wanted to really learn and put ourselves into a, university on wheels. So at that point, I mean, we're definitely a 10. Have we drifted below that? Yeah, absolutely. But you need to be really brutally honest about where you are on this scale right now. How willing are you to learn? Because there's another trap. A lot of people just become addicted to getting information. Okay, and that's not really willingness to learn because you're using it as a crutch, so you don't need to take action. Okay, so are you doing this? Are you just getting information, but you're not really trying to learn? You're just trying to entertain yourself. That's something that you need to ask yourself.
Right. We give, and I've given a lot of information to people, the exact blueprint to people to do certain things, and that's what they've asked for. People ask for that, and this is a phenomenon. They ask for that, the exact blueprint they get, and they do nothing with it. And I mean, you may be guilty of that. We've certainly been guilty of that. Why is it that if you have the exact blueprint that you wouldn't just go out and do it? Say somebody told you to just basically do this day in, day out, one thing. It took you 20 minutes each and every single day. That consistency would help you build your business, build it quickly, and yet you can't find 20 minutes in a day to actually be able to go out and do that. That's a teachability thing. Like you may say, yes, I'm completely willing to do whatever it takes, but are you really? So you have to, like Andrew said, be brutally honest with yourself and figure out where you are on this scale, from 1 to 10. Where are you right now? And it doesn't mean that you can't be more willing to learn. Doesn't mean that you can't be more teachable. It just means that from where you are now, you have to figure out how to get yourself up to a number 10 in order to move your business forward at a rapid pace.
Yeah, and the other thing is, a lot of people come to us and they're like, I'll just use an example, like, oh, I don't know how to forward a domain at GoDaddy, right? And that could be whatever. It could be that. It could be something more complicated, but I'm just going to use that as an example. GoDaddy. Well, people will let that stop them rather than going onto a little site called YouTube and watching and figuring that out. And honestly, I mean, if someone comes to me and says that, I mean, what really is their willingness to learn?
Right.
If the information is right there in front of you and you're not going to go out and get it, you are like the let me draw. Okay, this is going to be pretty bad. All right, so this is a horse. All right.
Actually, it looks like a horse right now.
Yeah. And you are like the horse that I'm dragging into this water hole, and he's so thirsty, but he doesn't want to drink. Right. That's an important parable. Parable. So that's an important story, an important lesson, and one of the reasons that the parables are really applicable.
Powerful, right?
Is because it's a story and it's illustrating something. It's illustrating a concept that is really basic, at the root level. And so this is really one part of what we're talking about here.
Right. Now, so at this point, I'm really hoping that you've all sort of, you have some idea of your willingness to learn, so from 1 to 10. Now, the next part of this, and so as soon as you see this next part, you're going to really understand how this is applicable. So the next part of this is the willingness to change. So we talked about the willingness to learn. So how teachable are you? How willing are you to do the things that we talk about? So everybody, again, says, yes, I'm so willing to do this. I'll do whatever it takes. And yet, we all have patterns. We've all done things. We all have things in our heads that have stopped us from doing things in the past. It really depends on how you feel about things and how you feel about change. And so if you tell me, or people say, yes, I'm completely willing to do whatever it takes, and then as soon as you've been given something that is slightly different than what you are used to or makes you slightly uncomfortable, and you say, hey, wait a second, I can't do that, well, then you're not willing to change.
Well, I would do anything for love, but I won't do that. No, I won't do that. Okay,
I wasn't expecting that. Anyway, yeah.
So that's meatloaf, okay, and it just pops in my head, and that's the thing people will say. We'll tell them, oh, go out and do this, and they'll say, well, no, I can't do that. I don't want to do that. And then you have to rank yourself from a 1, to a 10.
Right. So again, how you feel about things changing. Like, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about moving out of your comfort zone? The whole thing about moving out of your comfort zone, we're always talking about move out of your comfort zone, do something. So if you move out of your comfort zone, you grow. But the root of not moving out of your comfort zone is that you do not like change. And people grow when they accept and adapt to change. So, for example, like if your willingness to learn is a 10, your willingness to learn is a 10, your willingness to change is a 0, 10 times 0 is 0. That's it. So,
and that's how teachable you are.
Yeah, are teachable, but also where a lot of people are stuck. You see, the thing is, you have to really, first of all, determine where you're getting your information from. So if you are working with people who have had the results that you want, then you want to make sure that your teachability, like you're willing to learn and you're willing to listen to what they have to say, and that you've got the willingness to change in order to get the results that they have, and that's the big thing. Again, like people will say, yes, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. You need to ask yourself.
But they're just saying it.
Well, they're saying it, but I don't think they understand.
Yeah, they say it, and a lot of people don't do it.
I mean, even when I realized this concept, it was huge for us because there's always something that we can improve. The whole ability, that thing about being teachable and learning, you always want to be a lifelong learner. You don't want to be one of those people that say, well, I already know that, I've already studied that, I don't need to know any more about that. Because every time you hear information, you process it again and again, and you pull something different from it. And if you're in a different place in your life, you're just going to get a different interpretation, different perception of it.
And that's happened to me so many times. I've gone back to a book, I've said, okay, I totally understand that book. And a good example would be Cash Flow Quadrant. The first time I went through that, I was like, oh, okay, now I understand what having a business is. And I was doing a top tier direct sales company at the time, and I was like, okay, I have a business, so yeah, I really understand that. And then I came back to that book 4 years later, and I read it again, and I realized that of the 4 quadrants, okay, which just quickly are the employee, the self-employed, the business person, and the investor, and you want to go this way and then over here to the business and then down to the investor. I realized when I was in direct sales and I thought I was over here, I was really here. I was really the self-employed. I was really, a high-paid, earning a multiple six-figure income, but high-paid salesperson, okay? Because of the fact that if I didn't work, if I took a month off, my income would drop, probably close to zero. Now I was doing a couple things that were business-like at the time. I was building a list, I was doing other things, but really having a business is something that can grow without you. Now, if I had become stubborn and said, okay, I understand that, I understand, that I've got everything I need from that, then I wouldn't be willing to learn. One of the things that I think Marie and I, one of the reasons we're successful is because we'll always go into something and realize I'm gonna learn something from this. Whatever it can be, whatever situation, there's always something for me to learn. And that's something we've ingrained and internalized as a part of our DNA.
Right. And it's very important. Yes, it's something that we've internalized, and this whole mindset concept that we're talking about here. So from, just really protecting your energy, having the right thoughts, having the right feelings, and then coming to this part about action. So willing to learn, willing to change. It's something that we've really internalized, but that took discipline, that took persistence, that took us really cultivating this mental mastery, really being disciplined about staying with this. So, going back to this willingness to accept change, I can only talk about my own personal business and the systems that we've got. But, again, you have to look at building your business, you're getting instructions. Are you just picking and choosing what is comfortable for you to do versus doing everything it takes to get you to where you want to go?
Because if
right?
you are, you're down here. You're on the lower end of the scale.
Willingness to learn and then willingness to change. I mean, completely down there on the scale. And then you need to ask yourself, are you getting the results that you want? And so really, this whole webinar today is about self-reflection, really looking at what you are doing, because again, it all starts with you. What are you doing to either hinder yourself or move yourself forward? And the biggest thing, again, that we've seen after training thousands of networkers generically is that this whole concept of the action, willingness to learn, willingness to change, I mean, you have to have both of those things in order to really, really set your business on fire. So questions to ask yourself, I mean, are you happy with where you are? Are you happy with the current position that you are in right now in your business? If you're not, then you need to change something.
And you can change this. You know, if right now you aren't a high enough willingness to change or willingness to learn, you know, that's not something that's going to be static. You can always adapt to that. But I will tell you this, everything that you want in your life is outside of your comfort zone. This is where you are now, okay? Your comfort zone, you know, also does expand and contract, you know, over time based on the actions that you take. So it's flexible, you know, and some days it might be further out here, and some days it might be in here. But the point that I'm trying to make is that everything that you want is necessarily outside of your comfort zone, and that requires change, right? And a lot of people don't like change. You know, they're like, oh, okay, I want to make money, but I don't want to change. You know, oh, I don't want to do that, you know, but I want to change. If you want to change things in your life, you're going to have to change things. You're going to have to change things. So there's things that are in your life right now that you have to change. So
like if you feel like you don't make enough money,
you have to change something.
Yeah, or if you feel that you're not, you know, like if you don't feel like you have enough time, I mean, you have to change something. And so that's why this is so important.
Now here's a real tricky point, okay? Where you are right now is based on how you currently think, okay? Based on your thoughts, okay? So you think like that you're fine. That's the crazy part. And you have to realize that you have to change your thoughts, okay? So you think you're fine. Obviously, you know, you think you're doing the right things, right? If you're taking action in your business or whatever. But you need to realize that you need to change these suckers around, change these thoughts, you know? Now that's an interesting concept, right? Because it's kind of, it's almost like an out of body experience. You know, you got to kind of go outside your body and look at yourself. So imagine that. I mean, you are looking at what you're doing right now. You're running around, you know, building your business. Maybe you're doing some things right. You're probably doing some things wrong. And, you know, step outside of your body, you know, and look at yourself from up above and really look at what you're doing. And you have to realize that you need to change, first of all, you know, your comfort zone. You need to bounce out of that. You need to go boom out here. You know, just get out there as quick as you can and push that boundary further. But, you know, it's pretty cool. I mean, your thoughts need to change. And the way that you change your thoughts are by, you know, absorbing more information. You know, and not just going through something like this once, you know, because again, it will change your reaction to it. You know, when you start learning more about this, you know, you'll start to understand more, and then when you go back, you get even more out of it. And so it's a real process. And if you study successful people, like Marie and I have studied successful people, you'll see that they've taken the time to do that process. So it's not just like you're going to do one thing and then you change and then you're done changing, right? Because that implies that there's an endpoint, okay, that you've accomplished, okay? So you're done. You know, you're never done. That's the thing about this. You're never done. You're always going to change, because here's the thing: can you ever be finished if you need to change. No. You can't ever be completely finished. So it's really a process thing. You know, it's a journey thing. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. All right, so let's get to it. How do we make $1 million in hockey? $1 million in hockey.
Okay, so this
Come
goes
on,
back.
this is crazy.
Yeah, it is.
This is crazy.
This is crazy.
You
No,
can't
so
be serious about this.
well, we are. Yeah, we are. So here it is. When we started, it was, again, you know, like it was something, again, we realized we had to learn, we had to take the actions, we had to do the things we needed to do in order to succeed. And so when we were talking about willingness to learn, willingness to, you know, the teachability, your teachability factor, it's, again, what are you willing to give up? What are you willing to give up to make this work? What are you willing to give up for a year to make this work? And so in mine and Andrew's case, we made $1 million in hockey. I mean, for us, Andrew and I were hockey fanatics, like fanatical about it. Fanatical. It was just like, and if you follow hockey, you know in hockey season how many games there are per week.
Yeah, and this could be any sport, you know.
It could be,
but
yeah,
for
honestly,
us,
it could be anything. I mean, this is just our own personal story. It could be anything. But if you know hockey, I mean, during hockey season, there's so many games.
every game takes 3.5 hours at least, right? And then if you want to go nutso, you can listen to like the radio after.
Which we did.
Well, actually, they have the post show, right, after the game, and then they have the radio where the people are talking way into the night about like, right. Oh, why did Caberlet do that? And, you know, all that kind of stuff.
We watch, like, the press conferences, everything. You know, everything.
And there's a pregame.
It took a lot of hours.
Yeah.
It took a lot of hours.
At least, like, 3.5 hours a game, you know, because hockey, there's a lot of stopping and starting. It's a lot of, you know, whistle blows and all that kind of stuff.
Right. So basically, when we started in the home business industry, we realized that it was very instinctual. We realized that if we were going to make things work, we needed to give up something.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole idea is literally to be obsessive about building. And I mean, particularly in network marketing, when our business is dependent on momentum. I always tell people, don't think about sales, think about momentum. Because once you create momentum, your sales will come. But you cannot create momentum if you are not doing anything or you're not spending enough time there. You know, it's about consistency and time. And so Andrew and I, we gave up hockey. I mean, it was just completely cold turkey. We sat there and we decided, okay, fine. I think we had heard something. And it was like, okay, well, we have to give something up because this is what we want.
Because we want room for something else, right? And, you know, 3.5 hours a game times like times, you know, 3 games a week. I think there's about 3 games a week, you know, 9+ hours, you know, probably with everything and getting ready and, you know, all that stuff. You know, maybe 11 hours a week.
Right.
Something like that.
And it was just too much. I mean, obviously something has to give, right? And I know it sounds silly. So, yes, we gave up hockey. But at the same time, what else did we do? You know, we really decided that we were going to move out of our comfort zone. So we sat with people who were successful. We sat with the people in the company that were successful. We tried to figure out, you know, what were they doing? And we really tried to emulate and model what they were doing.
Well, we increased our teachability factor because we were studying. You know, like those things that we mentioned, you know, a few slides ago, like psychology and NLP and marketing and internet marketing and, you know, Corey Riel and, you know, all the things that we were learning from, you know, Dan Kennedy, learning about postcards, you know, about sales techniques and practicing them and going over them and putting them into practice.
Right, and that's the most important part, though, because I don't want you to think that we just sat there and just tried to, you know, take in all this information and didn't do anything with it. We
'Cause
were
you don't change if
actively,
you don't do
yes,
that.
we were actively applying, and like the change, doing things that were outside of our comfort zone. You've heard me say it if you've heard Andrew and I on webinars before. We were extremely introverted, very shy, and even if you know us now, we're actually quite, we're just very quiet. Cool, but
Laid
quiet.
back.
Yeah, and so, that was never, for us, sales and stuff like that was never in our comfort zone. And so what Andrew ended up doing when we were really starting to learn was he took a job for a couple of months, a telemarketing job, selling frozen meat. So calling out of the phone book, selling frozen meat, so frozen, like freezer fulls of frozen meat to people out of the phone book. Why did he do that? He did that because we realized that we had to learn sales process. There was no other way to do it really than to obviously like call, our own leads, but also just get out there and just practice. Practice being uncomfortable, practice being in situations where we could really figure out
Where we
process.
could talk on the phone. And here's the thing. So here's what we did. Literally they would take a page out of the yellow or the white pages, the residential listings out of the phone book.
They'd rip it
out, and they give it to me, and then I call for 4 or 5 hours or however
Straight.
long it was. Now, what did we learn from doing that? Well, when we were in a top tier direct sales company in like 2005, 2006, we were the number one recruiter. Okay, because we learned how to sell. We learned how to talk on the phone. We learned this.
We learned how to call and call.
We went number one. Okay, and we definitely, I'm telling you, we were not the kind of people that came naturally to, but we had a really high teachability factor. We were a 10 times a 10, right? Because you got to take those two things and multiply them together. So if you're like a 10 and a 4, you're at 40 of a possible
100.
Of a possible 100. So everyone needs to calculate what they are. And if you were like let's say you were a 7 and a 3, that would be like 21. So it really makes a big difference. If one of those numbers is low, if you don't have that ability to change. And we had that, because why else would you get a job where you're given a piece of paper out of a phone book and told to cold call. And then also, we've been the number one recruiter actually in our company right now. Even though it's been around for 6 or 7 years, we're on the leaderboard. So we're essentially one of the top recruiters.
Right. And again, it just has to do with your willingness. Those two things: willingness to learn, willingness to change. Okay. And this thing that we're just trying to impart on you today is that you just, like Andrew said, you just want to get these two factors up. It's what Andrew and I had that made us successful. It was the only thing, honest to goodness, guys, it was the only thing at the time that we had going for us because we did not know anything else. We did whatever they told us to do. They told us to go talk to people in the grocery store. That's exactly what we did. It made us uncomfortable, but we did it. Whatever it is.
We had a high teachability factor.
Exactly. And we just listened to the people who knew what they were talking about. So
this is the secret. You need to look at your thing. We're top earners and all this stuff because we're 100. We're 10 by 10. We're 10 in both. And you need to look at where you are. And if you're not 10 in both, then that could be why you may be trying, but you're not getting those results. All right, so Kaizen, one of my favorite terms. Okay, it's a Japanese term that means constant innovation. Okay, and I really love this because it's really about making those small innovations, that will lead to, improvement. Now, the interesting thing about Kaizen, again, it's so what is it? It's like constant innovation, right? And it's usually really small changes, right? So again, what does this say? This says high teachability to me because it's constant. Okay, it's not like, oh, we'll just innovate until we get it done. No, this is constant. This is continual, consistent innovation. Now, another interesting thing here is when you look at the top internet marketers. What are they always doing? They're always, split testing their pages, okay, or their sales processes, or their funnels, or their order form, or their landing page, or whatever it is. But they're always split testing. They always have a split test going. Now, Marie, do we always have a split test going?
Yes, and that's really important because we're always trying to figure out how to make things better, how to have that little edge, just that little edge anywhere, that little leverage that will help us do better. And so that's about constant innovation. Again, consistency, willingness to learn, willingness to change, no matter what it is that you're doing. I mean, like Andrew said, that's where you want to be. That's where people start to excel.
Yeah, and if you're not improving, here's the thing. I think Bob Dylan says
yeah.
if you're not busy being born, you're busy dying. So you're either progressing or you're regressing. Okay, and if you're not mindful about it, you're going to start to develop some bad habits and kind of slip down and not be watering the garden as this guy's doing, and really tending to this one plant. He's got the focus here. So that's a really important point to understand. So the secret of life. Okay, you ready? You guys ready for the secret of life? All right. The secret of life is you have to be willing to learn, and you have to be willing to change, okay, to adapt. So that's really the secret of life, if you want success. So you have to be willing to learn, you have to be willing to change. And if you're not where you are right now, you just need to ask yourself, am I willing to learn? Am I truly willing to change? If you are, you're going to have success in every single area of your life. Doesn't matter what area of your life that you're looking to improve. You just need to do these two things. And in 5 minutes, you can really sit down and ask yourself, and if you're honest with yourself, you know exactly where you are right now. So that's the secret of life. So we have what we want to do is kind of
talk to you for a
people,
minute.
Yeah, just kind of break this up right here, and let's keep that. All right, let's see where we are here. Okay, so what we want to do is, I'll find the thing here while Marie.
Yeah, what we really want to do is we actually want to survey you. I mean, so you've been following along with us right now, and I'd just love to get some participation from you as to, if this is resonating with you, if you're sitting here and you're starting to see how there are certain areas in your life where you can be willing to change, you're willing to learn more, then I want to know what it is that you want to do. I mean, again, like when we told you that story about Andrew and I just willing to give up hockey. For some people that may sound very silly, but for us that was really important. We were spending a lot of our time there, and it was important to us. We really enjoyed it. It was something that we did together. It was something that we really enjoyed, and so we were willing to give that up for however long it took in order to build a business. And, right now, I mean, we've been highly successful. We're currently building our new company. We're building our company right now. And one of the things that I love, obviously, I mean, we have a 3-year-old. I love him to pieces. If I could spend every single moment with him, I would. But right now, even building my current business, I feel like I am sacrificing time with him right now because I really believe in what we're doing, and because my why is to be able to have more so that I can spend more time with him, right? So having built that momentum, built that leverage, built that business, so I, in turn, have even more time with him. So what are you willing to give up?
So what you want to do is you want to raise your hand, and you can do that on the sidebar there, and then just speak about what you're willing to give up. Just type that into the
just type that into the chat bar.
Okay. Whoops. All right. I did something wrong. All right. Yeah. So what you want to do is actually, I think you can just type right into the chat, and we should
be able to see
that.
What you want to do, want to give up. You see, because the willingness to learn, I mean, that's how teachable you are, right? And you'll really figure out quickly how willing you are to learn if you're willing to give something up that's important to you.
All righty. Chat, okay. So let's see. All right, so we have people here with different things that they're willing to give up here. All right, so let's see. Okay, so we have someone here that says they're not willing to change. Okay, and that's interesting, because again, it's really about you. This is just about you. Someone else, I gave up watching TV. Awesome. Sleep. Going to give up sleep. Need to get out of my comfort zone. Willing to get up earlier in the morning to have more time. Excellent. See, that's awesome. That's a willingness to change.
That's a willingness to change.
That's a perfect example.
And I was actually going to say that's one of the things that we do also. I mean, we do get up really early in the morning in order to be able to do some of the things that we can't get done during the day. And so I completely resonate with that. Give up some of my hobby time. What else does this say?
Great info. Need to be more persistent in action. And
okay.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, putting it out there.
I be more mindful of my mindset. I've fallen into listening to those negative tapes in my head. That's so true. It's so interesting, this tape that we have going around in our heads. We have to realize that, again, we have, we're taking power away from ourselves when we do that. I mean, you really do have infinite power. You can create any type of life that you want. And so when we realize that if we can put ourselves in a state where we are wanting the best things for ourselves and we catch ourselves, one of the things that I had to really learn, because I had this horrible tape always going through my head, and it took me a very long time to figure out how to do this. But I really had to realize that a lot of the stuff that I was saying to myself and I was catching myself saying to myself did not serve me at all, and I had to let those go. And one of the best things that you can do for that is to have a gratitude journal. The gratitude journal for me, I started it back in, I guess it was 2003. Both Andrew and I had a gratitude journal, and right before bed, every single night, we would write down 5 things that we were so grateful for. And some days, some days I just couldn't figure out what I was grateful for. So I would say stuff like, I'm just really grateful for, I don't know, just even, I don't know, like waking up in the morning, which is a huge thing, by the way. But I mean, sometimes I couldn't figure it. So I would force myself to really write down 5 things. And it changed the way I saw my life.
Yeah.
And I remember one day after doing that exercise, maybe it was for a month, every single day doing that consistently, I remember going up the stairs in my house and just stopping and all of a sudden being flooded with just this feeling of complete and utter peace and just so much joy, because I realized that I did have just a very wonderful life, and it was me that was not seeing that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think when you get to that point, I mean, it does make it so much easier so a gratitude journal with those negative tapes, I think, makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and the other thing is it's important to notice is, or make note of, is it's all from where you are right now. that's where you are right now is where you are right now. So, as long as you are moving in that direction, it's going to get easier to go and do that. All right. So giving up time, need to give up more time. Sleep.
That's a hard one for us.
Yeah. I'm willing to give up searching on the social networks such as Facebook.
That's huge, actually, because you know what? Social networks are great, but you can spend so much time there and not get anything accomplished. I actually have to tell myself to not be in there all the time. I do. I have to tell myself to not be there all the time.
Yeah. See, and that's a good example because it's constant innovation. It's like always making that change. Time on the computer. Give up video games. That's what I did. I used to actually play a lot of video games, and now I don't play like any, because I just gave it up. And much like hockey, I just don't really have the time for that. Someone here says 100% of TV time, and that's perfect because that's what we did when we started. It really wasn't just hockey. We gave up everything. We canceled cable.
And still to this day, we actually don't have TV. So
yeah.
And that's fine with us. So.
Watching TV and going to the movies.
Oh, that's
awesome.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Giving up soda. So much fishing. Giving up being comfortable.
Yes. Wow.
That's a big one.
That is huge.
Because you have to relinquish that. I hate going to the mall to talk to strangers, cut back in jiu-jitsu. And everything's about, that balance, giving something up to create something so you have more time. Give up social times, willing to get up early, willing to follow through with my actions. This is great. Okay, good. Learning on the internet is addicting. Action is harder. And that's important,
Right.
So if you recognize that, and I'm sure there's a lot of people on the call, because I often talk about that when I do coaching with people, is are you really learning, or are you learning as a crutch so you don't have to do the hard stuff, right? It's easy to do the easy stuff. It's like but you're going to get the results from doing the hard stuff.
And it's great to recognize that, because a lot of the time people don't recognize that. They really do. Like if they're on the internet and they feel like they're learning things and stuff like that, they think that's enough. But again, it's that action part.
Okay, so willing to give up my free time and set action goals instead of spinning my wheels, getting nowhere, to stop working on the addiction overflow. Yeah, just too much stuff. Spending more time reading and learning. Yeah, a lot of people actually, an interesting thing. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't read any more books after finishing high school. And for me, I took English in university, so they had me reading like Tolstoy. I actually had to read Chaucer. I hated that. Hated Shakespeare. Okay, but anyhow. I actually like Tolstoy, but it was this one half semester class, and I had to read Anna Karenina, which is a long book, Childhood, Boyhood, and Youth, War and Peace, okay, and Resurrection, and a few short stories, all from Tolstoy, and that was a half-year course. So when I finished university, I stopped reading, and I just couldn't do it anymore. I just needed to get away from that, and sometimes you just need some time to adapt. But then when I started realizing about personal development, I came back to reading, and reading, I know Marie's dad always says, you want to be a lifelong learner. And so reading is really important, and is a big predicator of success. You'll see successful people will read, will have a tendency toward reading, and a lot of unsuccessful people have a tendency towards not reading.
We're very passionate about reading too, because like Andrew was saying, it's a predicator to how successful or unsuccessful a person can be. And so even like with children, we're always this is off on a tangent, but we think it's very, very important. And so constantly reading, and like I said, at the beginning of the webinar, we had a book, actually. We had a book right by our bed, and we challenged ourselves to read between 2 and 4 books, like personal development books, a month. And so we would write it down, and I mean, Andrew and I can be a little competitive too, and so it was like, who could get our, but you know, we were doing it and we were getting it done, and it made a huge difference for us. 2 to 4 books each per month on really trying to help our, you know, mental mastery, hone our skills, and made a huge difference.
All right, now this person said, I gave up my job in order to dedicate full time to my online business. Also gave up online gaming since it was a distraction.
Wow.
That is someone who's going to be successful. That person has a very high teachability factor. I need to study you and Marie more because I want what you guys have.
And that's really interesting. I mean, us, whether it's us or other successful people, you know, Andrew and I always really wanted to study people who had what we wanted, you know, and that's one of the things, like teachability, you know, that whole thing about willingness to learn. Who do you listen to? You want to listen to the people who have what you want because they've already figured out keys to that process. And so you want to be able to spend as much time with that person or those people as possible. And I actually saw somewhere somebody mentioned something about mastermind. Napoleon Hill talks about a mastermind and how that's key to, you know, part of your success. And so you really want to plug into different things as well. I know in our own particular company, we've got a lot of groups and things like that. So you want to stay plugged in to your company. And if you're in a different company, you want to stay plugged into your company. You want to be around the people who have what you want because they can give you keys and they can give you, you know, just basically what you need to go ahead and really excel in your particular company. And then again, willingness to learn, willingness to change.
Now, someone else put here, you know, need to give out time with the family because they come around a lot. So it sounds like, you know, when they live nearby and they just show up. And yeah, sometimes you need to do that.
Yeah, and that's sometimes hard, but we understand that too. I mean, from a perspective of us working from home, like sometimes people drop in a lot, and we have to set certain boundaries. So
yeah, gonna give up TV and living in my head. Yeah, I mean,
yes, that's
a lot
huge.
of people just
live in your head.
And it's just a pattern. It's a thought process that you're used to, and you know you just
and if it doesn't serve you, you need to replace it with something else.
All right, someone said, if I give up TV, sports, hobbies, doesn't that make me less interesting as a person? Wouldn't that push others away from me at all?
I think you're just really you know, basically you're just trying to figure out what you want to accomplish. I don't think it makes you less interesting of a person. I mean, you're doing something else. It's, I don't really think that those two are.
Yeah, no, it doesn't make you less interesting at all. You know, I
would think that would make it, sometimes when I hear people give certain things up just to be really focused on something makes me, I find them very interesting. So.
Yeah. Now again, you know, when you do that, I mean, maybe you should think about who you're spending, you know, a lot of your time around. You know, if you're around other people that just talk about sports and just talk about TV, you know, for example, and that's your main conversation, you know, is that really who you want to be spending your you know, most of your time with? Because the 5 people that you spend the most time with, you're going to have an income that's very, you know, similar to that. So we have someone else here. Stop watching random videos on YouTube. Great,
yeah,
great time
one, yeah.
waster. Google makes a lot of money from that. Spend more time with positive CDs. Awesome. Yes, that was a smoke detector.
And no fire, just very sensitive.
Okay. Yeah. So again, yeah. I mean, a lot of people are really talking about here. You know, what they're going to give up, and yeah, convert the wasted time in the car to university to yeah. I mean,
University on wheels.
Learn University on wheels. All right, perfect.
That's great.
So let's pop back in here, and okay. So what are you willing to give up? To give up specifically to change? So some of the specifics. Yeah.
So we went through that. I think that's great.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. That's awesome. And again, hopefully going through that with some people, maybe you got some different ideas of things, but you want to really put some thought into what you personally are going to give up, what you personally are going to change, right? Because again, your factor is a maximum of 100. You have to figure out what your number is. So here is an exercise in self-reflection. We're actually going to be giving away 3 free coaching sessions, and what you want to do is you want to submit a form, and one of the questions is why we should pick you. Why we should do the free coaching session with you. But again, this is for really for you. Why I want you to do this, because one of the most important things that you're going to do is you're going to have information, and then when you really understand it, and you internalize it, that's when you make a change. So this will come up and just you can just click off that, and then fill out this success survey, because this helps really internalize that change into you. So you have some questions here, and you'll see it's at andrewmurrayhq.com/success-survey. Okay, so /success-survey. And again, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be selecting 3 people. You're going to get an email of the answers you put down, and we're going to be giving away a 30-minute breakthrough training, breakthrough coaching. So you want to do this so you get maximum benefit out of it, because it's really about you. It's about you making that change. If that's what you want to do, because I'm sure a lot of people on this call, Marie, are realizing that, hey, now I understand what I need to do. My willingness to learn isn't high enough, or my willingness to change isn't high enough, and so you have the power to change that.
Exactly, and go ahead and do this exercise. I mean, it won't take a long time, but again, it's the starting point for really digging deep and figuring out, again, where you are in this process. And again, if you have some sort of, like some people might be like, oh, I don't want to fill that out, that kind of, you should ask yourself, again, willingness to learn, willingness to change. I mean, you really want to figure out where you are at this particular point, because once you can identify that, it will make it that much easier for you to actually go out and change the things that need to be changed in order for you to actually go ahead, change your life, and get the results that you want.
And so once again, andrewmurrayhq /success-survey. That's just not a broken line there. There's actually supposed to be a dash there. And there is, of course, but yeah, I just wanted to let you know. So once again, what we're going to do is wrap this up for today, but I want to thank you for being here. Thanks for giving up your time on a Sunday afternoon to learn. That says something about your willingness to learn and your willingness to change. So what you want to do is you want to protect your positive energy, keep your mindset in the right place to keep moving forward. It's really up to you to create the life that you want, but it starts with mental mastery, really understanding that. So go ahead and do fill out that survey. Hopefully you'll win the free coaching session, but you want to do that exercise for yourself, and that in itself and your willingness to do that will show you how willing you are to do what it takes in order to bring more success into your life. And I know if you take this information to heart, I know if you apply this information that we've talked about here, and you apply those 2 factors into your life, you're going to really understand, you're going to really start to see some dramatic changes in your life. And make sure that you write down a number today of whatever your number is, the 10 times 10, or if you're 4 times 7, or whatever that is for those 2 factors. Write down that number, because that's where you are right now. It's important to recognize that, and then where you want to get to. So have a great rest of the day, everyone. Thanks for being here. Arigato.